Hi students, I hope all are fine. So in the previous class we had a revision towards the first chapter, that is night voices. Okay, in which a boy was hearing so many noises and he was asking his father for some of his for the questions, his doubts or clarification with regard to the noises. So that was the first poem all about. And now we have something called a prose chapter, that is one summer night. Okay, in this one summer night we have Henry Armstrong, who was buried alive, and we have Jess and two medical students who try to dig the body of Henry Armstrong in order to have some experiments. But we know what happened towards the end. Henry Armstrong gets up hearing the thunder, and the two medical students, they think that he was a ghost and they ran for life. But there was just he waited there and he killed Henry Armstrong, took the body to the medical students in the morning and asked them for his pay. Okay, so that is a story about the one summer night in a summary form. So we have some questions and answers. We shall just have a revision towards it. Okay, so first we have a understanding. Read to understand. So first, answer the questions with reference to the context. Okay, so we have a context given, so we need to find the answers from the context. Okay, so nothing on earth could have persuaded the two to return. So who are the two referred to in this extract? Who are the two? The two persons referred to in the extract are the two students. Okay, are the two students. Then where were they at this moment? Why? So they were at the cemetery. Why? To dig up Henry Armstrong's coffin, isn't it? To dig up the coffin of Henry Armstrong. Then, why could they not be persuaded? Why? Because they could not be persuaded to return, because they were too frightened on seeing Henry sit up in his coffin, and they thought he was a he was a ghost. That's why they ran for their life, and nothing could have persuaded them back. Then second one, I'm sitting for my pay, he said. So who is the one who is saying all this? So who said these words? It is Jess. Okay, it is Jess, as you know. And then who was to pay him and for what? So why was he waiting there? The students were supposed to pay him because they wanted to dig up the body of Henry Armstrong. So as you know, Jess was the worker in the cemetery, isn't it? So the students hired him in order to dig up the body of Henry Armstrong, and they ran for life, seeing that he was a ghost. But just took the body and went to the students and asked them for the pay because he worked. He took the body. He took out the body of Henry Armstrong from the coffin. So that's why he was waiting there to get his pay. Then third question: where was the speaker at this moment? Who was speaker? Just was the speaker. So where was he at this moment? So Jess was in the dissecting room of the medical college. So Jess was in the medical college where the students were at this moment. Then answer these questions. So we have some questions to be answered. First, why do the young students feel reasonably secure? Okay, so while they were digging the body, they felt secure. They did not have any concerns, so they did not have any fear. Why did they have no fear? Then this is the answer. There were flashes of lightning and the signals of a storm on that dark summer night. Neither would anybody be out during such a time, nor would anybody be visiting the graves of their relatives. Also, only madmen would roam around at such a place and time. Since they could not be relied upon to speak sensibly, the three men felt safe and carried on with their job. Okay, why did they feel secure? Though they were digging up the body, why did they feel secure? Because there was a storm coming, there was lightning, there was thunder. So they knew that nobody will come out at this time, or no one would come to visit the cemetery at this time, because it was a dark summer night and there was a storm coming, and they knew only if at all anyone comes they would be mad persons, and no one will believe them if they made any comments, okay, with regard to this. So that's why they felt secure and they carried on with the job of digging up the body of Henry Armstrong. Second one, what were the horse and the wagon waiting for? Why were they outside the wall? Okay, so as you know, there was a horse and a wagon waiting outside the cemetery, isn't it? Cemetery's wall. So why were they waiting? So the horse and wagon were probably to be used to transfer the dead body to the dissecting room of the medical college. They were outside the wall so that no one would become suspicious about their presence or ask questions. Okay. Why were they kept outside? Because they were kept outside not to transport the body of Henry Armstrong to the medical college. So they were kept outside the wall because no one would have any suspicion, or no one would ask them anything. That's why they were kept outside the wall. Then third question, how do you know that Jess was of another breed? It is said that Jess was of another breed, isn't it? So how do we understand that Jess was of another breed? Because Jess did not run away in panic. His daring response to the unusual sight showed that he was both fearless and practical. Okay, we can understand that Jess was of another breed. How? Because when Henry Armstrong sat up just like a ghost, the two medical students ran for life. But Jess was there. He was of another breed. He was a fearless man. So he stayed there and he did not run, but he was practical. He used his spade and killed Henry Armstrong, thinking he was a snake. He was a ghost. Okay. So next, the two medical students were still in a frightened state the next day. How do you know this? Okay, so they were still frightened the next day. How can we know that? The two medical students were still in a frightened state the next day. We know this because their facial expressions, pallid and haggard from lack of sleep and terror, showed this. Also, their short verbal exchange shows that the image of the dead man rising was still fresh in their minds. Okay, so what we see here is this, that okay, the two medical students were still frightened. How? Because while they were speaking, we could understand they were using broken verbal exchanges. So from there we can and also from their faces, they did not have sufficient sleep. Okay, they did not have sufficient sleep. From that also we can understand that they were still uh, still suffering of what they had seen, or they were still frightened of what they had seen. Okay, then discussion, right? They have, why do you think the students wanted the dead body? It is your thought that you need to say. Okay, all answers are welcomed here. So but I gave you a small answer, but you can also add your own. Being the students of medicine, they must have needed the body of Henry Armstrong for study purpose, isn't it? So they were medical students, so they must have needed the body for medical purpose or study purpose or doing some experiments. So he was buried that day, so they knew his body was fresh, so they could do some experiments with that. That must have been the reason why they wanted the body of Henry Armstrong. Then, what agreement do you think the students had made with Jess? So, what was the agreement? The students agreed to pay Jess for helping them at the cemetery. Okay, students promised that they would pay Jess if we take out the body of Henry Armstrong. Then, the students were secure about what they were doing because of the absence of any witnesses. Do you think they had the sense of guilt? Justify your response. So the students were digging up the body of Henry Armstrong, isn't it? Weren't they? So how can we understand that whether they had any sense of guilt? What do you think? Okay, so that is a question. So you can answer your own answers, but I have given what is an appealing answer. I have given something that is no, they did not have any sense of guilt. If they had it, they would not have come to take away the body of Henry Armstrong on a summer night when no one was around. So, what we can say, they did not have any guilt. Okay, if at all they had any guilt, they would not have come to dig up the body of Henry Armstrong on that summer night when when there was a storm and they knew that no people would come around that time. So they did not have any guilt of digging up the body of Henry Armstrong. So this is the story about Henry Armstrong, about one summer night, what happened on that day. Okay, so I hope today's class is clear to you. Thank you and bye.